to get the young man.
High density infill. There are two areas nearby, Calgrove area where the old Smizer Mule Ranch is, and the property at Railroad and 13th Street, otherwise known as the Cowboy Festival parking lots, that are still undeveloped. They both have high density plans. What would be your vision for those two areas?
My vision for those two areas is whatever the citizens who live there's vision is. I know this is a strange concept. However, I believe that when you're going to do a development, that you do the development that the people that live right around there want to see in their neighborhood. And I have found that the people in Santa Clarita and most places are rather generous in that way, that they don't genuinely say absolutely no development, although some people get fed up and eventually that does happen. I found that people in Santa Clarita are willing to put a development in. A good example would be, you say, well, what's a good example of good development? Well, the Masters College is doing a huge expansion. When Masters College down in Clarita Canyon was going to start this, there was a lot of opposition. I mean opposition from Clarita, opposition from Dockweiler, opposition from everybody. It was a mess. Clarita took a deep breath and went back to the citizens and said, what do you want? What can we do? How can we solve this problem and still build our expansion out? And when they came to the city council with their plans at the end, they had people there saying, this is a great project. This is a great project. This is the citizens, neighbors. This is a great project. This is a great project. It was unanimous. There wasn't a single person that stood up and said, this is a terrible project, don't build it. That's a good project. So what is the vision for the Kasdan project? The Kasdan company needs to get together, if they still own the property and still going forward with that development, get together with the people in Clarita Canyon, and y'all figure out what it is that you guys want with them and bring that to a council together, just like Masters College did. As far as the Calgrove corridor, that was one of the groups that came to me right after I got off the council and said, help us. They're trying to build 2.5 million square feet on that little Smizer property. For those of you who want to visualize that, that's all of the town center mall and the buildings, all of them, all around there on Town Center Drive. All those, add them all up together without the current expansion, but it was about 2.5 million square feet. They're going to put that on that tiny property over there at Smizer. They were going to be 13-story buildings. It was going to be a little West LA. And the people over there asked for help. And I had the pleasure of speaking in the park and speaking on TV, and they organized greatly. And they came to a settlement and agreement with the city. Right now, the tentative agreement is that they're going to keep the density down to a very low level as far as zoning it, because they were going to rezone it in the One Valley, One Vision and pack it in. And they tried to do that with Clarita as well, with the Clarita area as well, early in the first drafts of One Valley, One Vision, but that was caught very early on and pointed out that had not been approved yet, so they took that out as far as the special standards are. Yes, ma'am?
What is your thought about an elected mayor?
My thought about an elected mayor is that if you have a good elected mayor, it's a great idea. If you have a bad elected mayor, it's a bad idea. See, you can have good government, and I think that the manager/council form of government that we have is a good form of government, and it's the majority form of government in California. But to make it work, it's got to be in balance. And anytime it gets out of whack, in either direction, if you have a weak city manager and people in the council, they're so afraid to do anything, and the council try to run over them and try to tell them how to do their job on a day-to-day basis, that won't work. And vice versa. If the city manager becomes the king and the council rubber stamps everything that comes through, that's no good either. Healthy government is a balance between those things. And I think it's a good form. I just think it's out of whack. Yes, sir.
Where do you stand on Newhall Ranch?
I stand on Newhall Ranch that Newhall Ranch is in the county and we're in the city. You don't have any jurisdiction over Newhall Ranch.
Nobody.
And me personally, I think that Newhall Ranch, if Newhall Ranch gets all the permits that they have, they should build Newhall Ranch. If they get the water, they got to prove they have water. They got to prove they have the infrastructure. And they need to prove that their traffic's not going to negatively impact us in such a large degree that it's going to put us into gridlock. But other than that, that development, it's outside of my sphere of influence. If I were king of the world, well, if I were king of the world, I'd probably have our ranch where we moved in 1960 up there in Lost Canyon area, and none of you would have been allowed to move here. Yes, ma'am.
What's your take on the Benelli track and the North Oaks tracks issues with the preservation officers?
The Benelli track and the North Oaks track as far as preservation officers. Good question. First of all, two different areas. Okay, so two different neighborhoods. They should have two different sets of standards. The problem with the Benelli tract, and by the way, I became involved in the Benelli tract because my daughter's third grade teacher, Ms. Manja, was talking to my wife in the staff meeting and lamenting over the fact that their neighborhood was in turmoil because people came in from the city and were threatening to fine them, and if they didn't pay the fines, they would go to jail, and people were having to spend thousands of dollars to basically do code infractions that were not fire life safety issues. There was a lot of issues over the size of the amount of concrete in the driveway. Okay? The Benelli tract was built in the late 50s, I believe, and North Oaks 1 was built right around the early 60s, I believe. Give or take. Yes, somewhere in the neighborhood. But they're completely different layouts. The Benelli tract has a lot of detached garages in a large format. Houses here, garages not square to this thing, and it's off to the side. So a lot of the problems, especially on the driveway issues, came by the fact that the garage is over here and the driveway is over here. So it wasn't just like you drive up and go in the garage, so you just need a little piece of concrete. There's also that issue of that concrete over the side between the property line and the garage that you'll find about in some neighborhoods 50, 60, 70% of the people have filled in so they can put an extra car there or storage or whatever they put there. So because the layout is different, these two neighborhoods need to, in my opinion, create their own standards. This is the ideal thing. They need to get together with a city, create their own standards and look at it. Because we're not talking about trying to, nobody believes it's right to have a car over there on cinder blocks, okay? And to have the entire property concreted in, to have rusting chain link fences. We can all tell that this is not the kind of neighborhood that I know of anybody that wants to live in. Now, that is not the case. It was not the case in the Benelli, and in certain parts of North Oaks is or is not. It's a very difficult task, but it is one that I think the city should keep doing. But as they do it, they really need to consult the people that live there to make sure they get a feeling for what it is that people want enforced, what they don't want enforced. And this all, of course, is without fire life safety issues. I'm running out of time here. I have 28 seconds left. So if you want to ask other questions or with more specificity, go ahead and give me...
How'd you get your name, TimBen?
TimBen. Timothy is my first name. Ben is my middle name. I used to go by my stage name in the theater as Ben Boydston. I went Timothy Boydston when I ran for office back in 1978 for Canyon County. The press thought it was two people, put them together. And so I said, damn, the press knows. Thank you all.